concerned about assimilation.
Well, no, they used the one
Legitimate.
but they were starting to
Wow.
just go with
All right. Similarly, it includes customs and ordinances that were ordained or practiced in each generation, according to judgment of the governing court of that generation. It is forbidden to deviate from these decisions. Thank you, Scott. Do not deviate from the instruction that will give you left or right. So, again, note 27. In the introduction to his commentary on the Mishnah, the Rambam also mentions these two categories, describing them as laws that were established after mediation of the proper structure for interpersonal relations, without adding or detracting from the words of the Torah, or matters that were instituted for the spiritual betterment of humankind. Among the examples of such laws are Hillel's institution of the proselyte, which I'll explain in a minute, and the ordinances of Yeshua, which require a father to support his children. And then he goes all these. All right, so the proselyte was, you are not allowed to let your fellow lie in distress. And so where we get that is all the rules about lending money to help someone in need. The problem is, every Shemitah, every sabbatical year, the 7th year, all loans are forgiven. Well, the crickets. Well, here's the thing. People would stop making loans in year 5 and 6, knowing that they would not get their full payment. So the proselyte that was not the intent of the law. So the proselyte was, you have 6 years, and the 7th year all debt is remitted. So that was the part of that. The other piece is,
including that?
good luck with that one, right? Well, no, but if you look at it, until, what was it, about 10 years ago when Congress rewrote the bankruptcy laws, what was the time limit for bankruptcy? Yeah, on your record, 7 years.
And it's also statute of limitations.
Right. Well, statute of limitations usually is 10 years, right? Or 7? Okay. But my point is, that unfortunately got changed. Now I think it's 10 years for bankruptcy. Well, I don't know, it's not good. Because religiously speaking, 6 years and then you make amends and move on. Likewise, where we don't have in the law books and never was actually practiced, was the Yovel, the Jubilee, which every 50th year, everything is returned. So any property that your family had 50 years ago, that you had to sell to make your life possible, all that property is returned back to you. That never actually got happened. We know that.
It doesn't have to do with that.
Yeah.
But what do you call it? China, Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Was
Oh, right, their
returned-
99-year lease when it ended,
Right.
went back to Hong
That was
Kong. That's absolutely
99
correct.
years.
And then what China did was very fascinating. While it was under Chinese rule, they kept it separate, because financially within their interest to do so. And so far they maintain that, but there's been clearly a Chinese presence of what the acceptable versus what was before. So, the other component that he was giving an example of, it says that you are responsible for your child until they become an adult. Well, the adult is 13. Not everybody got married at 13. In fact, no one got married at 13. Maybe a girl did, but the guys didn't. They probably got married at 15, 16, 18. It wasn't unusual. And so, father is responsible for a child until they get on their own. And so that was also another way of understanding these rules. Okay. So it also includes marvelous judgments and laws which were not received from Moses, but rather were derived by the courts of the later generations, based on the principle of biblical exegesis. Remember, taking a text and expanding it to make it meaningful for the world in which you live in. The elders of their generation made these laws and these decisions that with the law. Now, Rav Ashi included in the Talmud the entire body of knowledge. So the point is understanding that these laws, you're right, you said they were terse in the text. They are. One would argue they're terse because it's a living document, and therefore it can still speak to us today. The way we like to look at our Constitution being a living document. The Constitution could not, in any way, shape, or form, because society could not, in any way, shape, comprehend the concept of same-sex marriage. The way the court ruled on it was based on the premise of the privacy of one's own life, and that we have the right to pursuit of happiness and so forth, that for a state to say your marriage is not valid doesn't count. And the real reason why it won is because some states said it was valid. Once you do that, you can't be married in one state and not married in another state. And what was the real proof text of this, by the way, which I found fascinating? Cousins. You can marry your first cousin in New Jersey.
Ugh. I'm sorry.
No, don't be. The idea of being married to my first cousin, no, right? 39 of our 50 states allow marriage to your first cousin. Not all of them. But if you're married in a state that allows it, you're married. Another state can't take that away. Let's not go there. Anyway, bad thoughts. But no, we had a former congregant. They're first cousins. Their kids are fine, further than now. So, all right. Mishnah sages compose other texts, explain the words of the Torah, and compose an explanation of the book of Genesis. That's Mikra and Kabbalot. Ishmael, all these other than the Mechilta. The Mechilta is famous because it's all of the stories of the Exodus families and so forth. And we'll take a look at that later. We're not today. All right. And they're telling us all these other people. I'm jumping ahead because I want to get a little bit of text. Yes. All right. They tell you about how the court system started, to help interpretation of law, and who made the judgments, and how they were mentioned in the Talmud. And so what Moses Maimonides does in the Mishneh Torah, he sees this as a totality. If not, he sees it as a conclusion. Okay? And then, arising in Israel and Babylon. Okay. So I'm on page 15. The Talmudic sages who established ordinances and decrees, put customs into practice, arrived at legal decisions, and taught concerning certain judgments. They did not teach how you get from A to B. They just taught you the answer. And they gave you a reason behind it. So I'll give you a simple example. Shabbat 21b of the Talmud tells us that according to Shammai, you are to light 8 candles the first night of Hanukkah and take 1 candle away each night. And according to Hillel, you add 1 candle the first night, you keep adding until you get to the 8th night. And the conclusion is we follow the practice of Hillel. Right? And the reason is we want to increase brightness in the midst of darkness. That's lovely. But it's BS. Why? First of all, you have to understand why Shammai said what he said. When Hanukkah ended, meaning the battle, in 165 before the Common Era, and they cleansed the temple, whether it was really the 25th of Kislev, matter of debate, but we'll go with that. There is a lot of speculation that the 25th of Kislev and the pagan festival of Saturnalia on the 25th of December, that similarity piece. Jesus was not born in December. Happy birthday, Jesus, but he was actually born in March or April. That's a whole other story for another time. And we have the proof to back it up, because there's so many pieces of the story that don't work. And of course the story is much later. That's the other issue. But when they finally got the temple on the 25th of Kislev, there was a holiday they weren't able to celebrate for 3 years. That's a major big deal. The holiday we start tonight. And that's the festival of Sukkot. Because why is Hanukkah 8 days? Seriously. We have 7 days of Passover. The 8th day is because we're not sure when the calendar begins, and we carry that tradition.
Special.
I'm sorry?
You want to make it special.
No, that's not the reason.
No?
Because you have Sukkot, which is 7 days, and Shemini Atzeret, the 8th day of assembly. That's why Hanukkah is 8 days. And so the idea...
Well, it's special by making it an extra day longer.
No, and not do that. They were emulating the holiday they couldn't celebrate for 3 years because it was such a major festival, because that was your food source from September, October to April. Because you only ate flesh when you made a sacrifice. And the idea of everybody coming together. And there was a pilgrimage festival. And during that festival, you slaughter 70 bulls the first day. And then you slaughter 68. You take away 2 each day. And you're not just slaughtering for slaughtering, you're feeding the people. Who then are smoking it or drying it out and taking it home to make it through the winter.
Barbecue.
Well, that's what it is. I mean, that's what sacrifice is anyway. And so that's why 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, that's why Shammai argued the way he did. If you read the text, it's there. Furthermore, the Hillel way was, the emphasizing is, we don't want to emphasize the sacrificial cult because the temple is already destroyed, which is not totally true, but okay. But we also want to emphasize the brightness and the hope of the holiday, because God is missing from the whole story anyway. And that's another problem for the rabbis. So my point is that we get the answer, we don't necessarily get all the arguments behind it. That is the criticism of this text. Okay. So the idea, they get the fundamental aspect and they keep transmitting it. All the sages arose after the conclusion of the Talmud and comprehended its wisdom, meaning they studied the Talmud, and they gained the reputation called the Geonim. So they're not the Amoraim, they're the next generation, Geonim. And they arose in the land of Israel, Babylonia, Spain, and France. Eretz Israel, because of the great leaders there. Babylon will be Hillel Shammai students. Spain will be your Moses Maimonides, your Gersonides. France will be Rashi. Okay? And they taught the approach of the Talmud, revealing its hidden secrets. And it's composed in the language of Aramaic, which is a mixture of other tongues. This language was understood by the people of Babylon in the era when the Talmud was composed. However, in other places, and even in Babylonian, the era of the Gaonim, a person cannot understand this language unless he has studied it. Every rabbinic student in your first year of rabbinical school, you learn 4 languages, You learn modern Hebrew, you learn biblical Hebrew, you learn Aramaic, and you learn Rashi Hebrew. And it sounds very complicated, and it can be, but it really isn't, because the similarities are far greater than the differences. So the most simple one I can give you is the Kaddish. The Kaddish is completely in Aramaic except for the last line. Oseh Shalom is Hebrew. The rest of it is Aramaic. So all the Daleds and so forth. My personal favorite is, so Rosh Hashanah morning, Ali and Samantha said, "Are you okay? You look like you messed up the Kaddish." I said, "I didn't mess it up." Because he said, "You said La'ela, La'ela." I said, "Yeah, look at the text, bless you. On the high holidays, you add God's sovereignty and praise twice. And it's in the text." And they're like, "Oh." I said, that's the gray line. It's literally gray. So, same concept. And that's Aramaic. Let's see. The inhabitant of each city would ask many questions to each Gaon who live in their age to explain the difficult matters that exist in the Talmud. They would reply them according to their wisdom. People would ask the questions, would collect the replies, and make texts from them so they could consider them in depth. And each generation would teach it and explain the halachot. Some would teach much more if the student was willing. And they also composed texts of the law so more people could understand and grasp, because they needed to put it in a language that people understood. And so they do all this, and they give us the date of creation of the world, 35, which is 1177. So at the time, Moses Maimonides. Okay? So he constantly revises his work, and he does all the dates here. So that's how we're getting the dates here. All right. At this time, we have been beset by additional difficulties. Now we're talking Moses Maimonides' time. We're on page 17. Okay? The wisdom of our sages has become lost, and the comprehension of our men of understanding has become hidden. Therefore, those explanation, laws, and replies which the Gaon composed and considered to be fully explained have become difficult to grasp in our age. Why? Well, they're written in a language we don't understand. Arabic, Hebrew, Egyptian, whatever. Doesn't matter. Okay? And only a select few comprehend these matters. Needless to say, there is confusion with regard to the Talmud itself, because both the Yerushalmi and the Babylonian Talmud, the Sifra, the Sifrei, and the Tosefta require a breadth of knowledge, a spirit of wisdom, and much time for appreciating the proper path regarding what is permitted and forbidden, and the other laws of the Torah. Therefore I girded my loins. Now, this was written by him, meaning Moses Maimonides. I, Moshe, son of Maimon in Spain, I relied on the rock meaning God. Blessed be God. I contemplated all of these texts. I'm really special, by the way, when I tell you this. And sought to compose a work which would include the conclusions derived from all these texts. In other words, this is a cliff note. Mishneh Torah, by definition, is cliff notes to all 613 rules. Okay? And extrapolations. In other words, some of the rules won't be here because we don't do it, or extrapolations of it, of what the world in which they're living in. Regarding the forbidden and permitted, the impure and the pure, the remainder of the Torah's laws, all in clear and concise terms. I laugh. It is clear and concise if you know the language. Okay? So that the entire oral law can be organized in each person's mouth without questions or objections, until they wrote the commentary to this. Okay. Instead of arguments, this one claiming such and another such, this text will allow for clear and correct statements based on the judgment that result from all the texts and explanations mentioned above, from the days of Rabbeinu HaKadosh until the present. This will make it possible for all the laws to be revealed to both those of lesser stature and those of greater stature, regarding every single mitzvah, and also all the practices that are ordained by the sages, and the prophets. To summarize, the intent of this text is that a person will not need another text at all with regard to any Jewish law. This will be the end all until the next book comes out, which we don't, right? And so therefore I call this text Mishneh Torah, the second to the Torah. We also say the teaching, the review, with the intent that a person should first study the written law and then study this and comprehend the entire Torah. And so I decided to divide this text into separate halakot and so forth, and also to be committed to memory. Want to look at something real fast? Yeah. So the Rambam implying that the desire to the Mishneh Torah is to be studied in the order in which it was composed, that a reader can receive a full picture of the oral law. So what we will do in our next session is I'm going to give you a couple of the hilchot, a couple of the laws. Some you'll recognize and some you'll going, what? But the point is to be exposed to the idea that there are other ways of looking at oral tradition that we can understand. And so, do I have it here in the front? Forgive me. No, but I have it here. So, we're going to take a look at. I actually have the Sefer Hava in my office, the Book of Love, the cover of prayers and blessings. We'll look at some of the holiness codes, the Book of Seeds, and the Book of, not called festivals, what's it called, of the year, I think. Seasons, Book of Seasons, which is Sabbath and holidays. Just to take a look at different pieces of it. From that, so I want to take it with the course of action. We're going to meet every time we have school in session. We made a policy decision last week that I will no longer be scheduling funerals during school hours. I could have one afterwards like I do today, but the point is that this class is happening, unless some weird thing, but we're having. So our next section is and I meant to have this scheduled for you today, and I apologize for that. It's the 14th of October. Okay? And I will send out the full calendar to all of you, including the people that are not here. We either are meeting twice a month or once a month, depending on the month, because other obligations are already on the calendar, but that's the plan. Okay? And then as we go along, we'll, if there's a particular area of Jewish thought, philosophy, text that you want to explore, let me know. I'll prepare it. I don't mind. Part of this program, the premise has been, while we may or may not look forward to an adult confirmation ceremony, I'm going to recognize you for your learning. But I want to challenge you. I want to push you to look at difficult things, to learn more, so that your knowledge is no longer your pinky nail, but maybe your two fingers together. And I'm being honest, mine's maybe 4 fingers. I still have the rest of the hand to go. I'm okay with that. That's the whole premise. We spend our lives continuing to grow with that. And that's all I have today. Any questions or comments? Thank you. Have a great week. Now, you're not here on the 14th, correct?